Hello everyone. Today's video is brought to you by the front page of the internet, good ol' Reddit. Today we're going to be covering 3 stories from r/dating hell, when bad dates happen to good people. The premise of this subreddit is, quote, "Don't let that bad date go to waste. Share all of your cringy, nasty, gut-busting dating stories." Wow. Sound good to you? Well, sounds good to me. We're moving on. Sit back and enjoy. TLDR. I've been dating some guy who seemed nice and respectful, but turned out he was a racist. This happened about a year ago when I found the subreddit. Now, hope you find the story entertaining. A year ago, after my 18th birthday, I downloaded Tinder and had matched with a few guys, but none of them really caught my eye, or I just wasn't interested in a one-night stand. This was going on for about a week until I matched with someone my age, had lived really just a few streets down from mine, and shared some interests. We had started talking and exchanged snaps and numbers, and a month after Canada Day, we had met in person. His appearance was as he said he was, tall, funny, etc., and I fell for him. We had started hanging out with his friends, and then things had become official. The first actual date we went on was to a park near our houses. We watched some crappy TV, got energy drinks, and we talked. In the park, he really let his true colors show. He had started talking bad about First Nations people, and had started calling them horrible names which I will not repeat. And when I asked him to stop, and that my adoptive family was First Nations, he laughed and said, "You want to stop dating me now?" I never gave an answer to him, but after that, I should have stopped talking to him and just stopped dating him. For the duration of the relationship, there were times where he flat out said slurs, made fun of people with different ethnicities, all right in front of me, on the phone or through text. I feel so stupid that I stayed with him, and that I just didn't walk away from him that day in the park. But I'm glad I'm not with him anymore, after making fun of / insulting my family and friends. Hadn't been on Tinder in a long time due to just overall crappy men on there, but now I leave at any given chance to get out of any horrible or toxic relationships. I haven't dated in a year, but I'm fine with that, considering that every guy I talk to seems to find it funny to make racist jokes. Don't you just love bigots? And furthermore, it just makes me wonder if he's not willing to respect her wishes and not saying those awful things, what other boundaries is he willing to cross? Anyways, on to the next story. TLDR. I had dinner at a date's house, and he got drunk and peed off the second-story balcony and then told me his plans to impregnate me. Oh. I was introduced to someone through a friend. After chatting for a bit on the night, we exchanged numbers and he promised to message me. He seemed like a genuine guy, and he was a few years older than some of the men I normally go for. However, I was willing to see where this went. He had a really good job, and we liked a lot of the same things. To cut a long story short, he seemed, to me at least, to be driven, and knew what he wanted from life. He was, I guess, the sophisticated, slightly older male, and he seemed really keen to go out with me. Our first date went well. We meet up quickly for some coffee and a light meal on my lunch break from work. He was really passionate about his job and what he did, so I was really fascinated by that. He asked if I'd like to go out again, and I said yes. We ended up meeting for a drink after work on the Friday night. Again, it went well. He was really charming and funny, and any reservations I had about dating someone slightly older than my normal type went away, as he was very easygoing and put me at ease. A week or so later, he rings me and asks if I want to have dinner at his house the next evening, and I say yes. And he texts me his address and says that he looks forward to seeing me. The night started out well. The conversation was good, and he was funny, and everything felt natural. I didn't notice at the time, but he was drinking a lot. It may have been nerves that made him drink more, and I sort of nursed my glass of wine while we chatted and had nibbles. While he downed 2 or 3 more beers in the space of a half hour, it only increased as the night wore on, and I had maybe 3 glasses of red wine in total, while he polished off an entire bottle himself. and then all the extra beers on the side. His behavior starts to change slightly. I guess from all the alcohol he consumed, he became loud and quite obnoxious, and he started talking over me on different subjects while I was talking, clearly not taking an interest in anything I said. About halfway through dinner, he announces, and I quote, I need to piss. Hold on. The bathroom was like right there, so not that far from the dining room. But no, he opened the sliding glass door, walked out a few steps on the balcony, unzips his pants, and starts going. He was standing not that far away from me, and he just let it go and peed off the second floor. He even looked behind me and gave me a goofy, half-drunk smile while he did it. I was like kinda disgusted and didn't know where to look or what to do. He came back in all smug and proud of himself, sat right back down and finished his meal. Didn't wash his hands or anything. I excused myself and went to the bathroom as soon as we had finished eating. I quickly called my sister and asked if she could ring me in a bit with some fake event that I could get out of the date. So then I call a taxi so that I could be picked up in a half hour's time. As my car was at the mechanics for the weekend, I felt bad for faking an event, but he was seriously starting to creep me out and make me uncomfortable, and I just really didn't know what else to do. Continuing on with his charm offensive the next night, he called me and said that he hoped to, quote, breed me, and he wanted to rut with me. I told him how uncomfortable I had been in his house when he peed off the balcony, and hearing this made me want to gag. I blocked him and asked my friend why the fuck she thought we would be a good match. But the friend was completely unaware of this side of him. I'll admit, I have been a little bit more drunk than I should on dates, and I have definitely made an ass of myself as a result. But I don't think I whipped it out and shouldered my golden arches, if you know what I mean. Remember, everyone, while it might be great to have a few drinks on a date, getting sloshed is never a good idea, no matter how bad your nerves are. Alright, well, moving on to the next story. Alright, this last one's a doozy, so yeah, prepare for some turbulence. This one's titled, Always Have an Exit Strategy. TLDR, I was trapped 55 kilometers, 34 miles, for you Yankees, from home, on the date from hell with my dog held hostage. I just discovered this subreddit, so I figured I'd post in here. After all, I have the perfect saga. Settle in. It's a long one. This only happened less than a week ago, but the foundations were laid about a month prior. I, 34 male, matched with a girl, 32 female. Let's call her Jane, on a very popular bee-themed app. Jane messaged me at around 2 a.m. and we got to talking. We had a lot of similar interests and conversation was flowing nicely. I was on the night shift and she was very welcome company. She lived not far from where I was working and suggested that we meet for a coffee when I finished work. I quite liked the spontaneity of the offer, so I accepted. We never had that coffee, as when we met, she suggested a walk on the beach, which was a 15-minute drive. She hopped in my car, incredibly trusting of her, I thought, and off we went to a beautiful beach walk. We chatted for about an hour or two before I started to fade from the previous night's work. I called time on the date, dropped her home, kissed her on the cheek, said, "Let's do this again," etc., etc. All was well, and the feelings were warm and fuzzy all around. For various reasons, it took about a few weeks to arrange a second date, but we eventually got there. We lived a decent distance away from each other, 55 kilometers or 34 miles, so it was a toss-up between her traveling to me or vice versa. We decided that I would travel to her, as I was the only one who drove and planned our date. I booked an Airbnb, so there were no assumptions. We decided to meet early evening, walk our respective dogs by the sea, drinks in a lovely pub, dinner in a beautiful seafood restaurant, and possibly drinks after if all went well. So far, so romantic. Cue the descent into madness. The first bad side was when I rang her to ask her if she'd like me to pick up some drinks on the way down. Now, I like to drink. I'm Irish. It's in my DNA. But this order staggered me. She wanted 8 16-ounce cans of cider, a bottle of Pinot Grigio, and a bottle of rosé. You could drown a small child in the amount of alcohol in her request. But being the good date that I wanted to be, I obliged and set away on the hour drive to her place. As I approach her hometown, I decided to check my Airbnb booking. Said booking has disappeared into the ether, as has the room I booked. Now, being a serial procrastinator that I am, and not wanting to be late, I decided to sort it out later, but actually, luckily enough, she offered her spare room to me. So I arrive at her door and I'm greeted with a big hug. Such a lovely evening. Except I begin to notice that she is slurring her words a bit. She tells me she didn't really sleep the night before, and has had a bottle of wine already. For context, it's around 5 p.m. She explains she was pretty nervous about the date. My stupid, self-conscious brain is utterly flattered at the thought that someone would be nervous about a date with me. So I breeze past it and take it as a compliment, and, to her credit, she drinks slowly as we chat in her garden. The dogs are gleefully playing in their back garden as we sip our drinks and chat on a beautiful sunny evening near the eastern Irish coast. Despite the eccentricities, it's shaping up to be a lovely evening. Time gets away from us and we decide that we don't have time to walk the dogs, so we head up to the pub for a pre-dinner drink. Idyllic, huh? Well, strap in, dear reader. It's about to get weird. We arrive at the beautiful pub, grab a seat outside and order drinks. Immediately, she turns to the left. There's a couple sitting beside us with a beautiful boxer breed beside them. She adopts this dog. She asks, can she hold the dog's lead? And ends up minding the dog for the little under an hour we were there, and all the while talking to this couple while they're eating their dinner. I'm sure they were happy to have a dog sitter. I sat there and tried to enjoy an admittedly incredible pint of Guinness. Time comes to head to the restaurant, and off we go. Picture the scene. Outdoor seating, sun slowly setting, 5 steps away from falling into the harbor. Absolutely idyllic. The food is incredible. Succulent muntfish, flaky cod, everything perfect. Well, Jane likes making friends, so she befriends a couple at the table next to us. They're a lovely couple in their late 60s, conversation is flowing. Jane excuses herself to the bathroom. The female half of the couple leans and grabs my hand. Oh, you seem like a very lovely man. Please, please, please be careful with this girl. This is my oh shit moment. So I decide to stop drinking. I've got about half a glass of wine left and I nurse it for the rest of the meal. We get our doggy bag, I pay, and we go off into the night. As we leave, the aforementioned female half of the couple gives me a worried look and squeezes my hand with what I know now was a look of concern as goodbyes were said. A post-dinner drink is suggested by Jane, and as this is not my hometown, I follow her lead. I'm led to the dingiest, dirtiest, locals-only pub I've ever seen. I'm pretty sure I heard a record scratch as all heads turned to look at the outsider entering their hallowed space. We make our way outside into the back of the pub in the smoking area. I get drinks in as she disappears. I find her talking to a group of 5 men. Okay, maybe I think that they're friends that she hasn't seen in a while, right? Nope. They were complete strangers. Thankfully, one of them calls me over to join. Turns out they're great fun and I click with 2 of the guys, Jonathan and Steven. Sitting to my left, as Jane wanders back and forth between the 2 to my right and 1 opposite to me, chats are being had, and while unconventional for a date, I'm having a good time. Eventually, nature calls and off I go to a mold infestation with a urinal in it. On my return, the mood has changed. Jonathan has the face like a bulldog who's accidentally drank piss. I ask if he was okay. He says, "You need to have a word with her, man. She just slapped me in the face." Now, I'm incredulous, and I ask what happened. He can't tell me what instigated it. All he knows is that she leaned across the table and landed 5 of her best across his cheek. I go into damage control mode. Jane is happily, obliviously chatting away to the other guys, so I focus my attention on Jonathan. Calm him down, and eventually things are okay again. Mercifully, the last orders are called. We make our way towards the exit, but my annoyingly small bladder decides to lure me in to the cesspit yet again. Off I trot and finish my business to come back to an empty space where Jane used to be. I wander into the bar area to find Jane, arm draped and arse planted all around one of the elderly patrons of the bar. I gently interrupt the rendezvous and we make our way to the exit. Except, Jane decides that the Herculean amount of alcohol in her house isn't enough, and she holds me back to order 8 more cans of beer for takeaway, a practice that is normally reserved in only the dodgiest pubs in Ireland, as technically it is illegal. Cans in hand, we begin the merry march homeward. We get to what I later realize is halfway to her house. I'm not familiar with this town in the slightest, and it's my 3rd time here, and it's now 1 a.m. when Jane decides she'd like to have a sit-down on the street. She invites me to join and I decline. Her persuasion method is shouting, "Sit the fuck down, you fucking asshole!" I'm shocked, and I do my best to defuse this situation. She eventually accepts my hand, and I help her up, and she rewards my chivalry by slapping me in the face. Twice. I am completely taken aback by this, but I'm acutely aware of how far I am away from home, and I'm hoping now to get to hers, sleep in the spare room, and leave the next morning. Onwards we march, until she needs another sit-down, presumably with the intention of making it to base camp in the morning. She resumes her refrain of calling me an arsehole for not sitting down on the cold ground, and at this point, I give up. Off I go, leaving her there. I decide to sleep in my car and drive home as soon as I wake. I get back to the car with cans and leftovers in my hand, roll back the passenger seat, and hunker down for the night. As soon as I get comfortable, a horrifying thought intrudes. My dog is in her house! I decide to sleep and try and retrieve my dog in the morning. He's indoors and it's warm, and I assume he is safe. Off I go into the land of Nod until I'm awoken by the window of my car being slapped hard. Guess who? She angrily insists I come inside, and I see this as a chance to rescue my dog. In I go, and then a horrifying realization dawns on me. My dog likes going upstairs. My dog also has cataracts. My dog is also afraid of walking downstairs after multiple falls. 3 guesses where my dog is in Jane's house. I follow Jane upstairs, all the while trying to plan my exit strategy. As soon as my foot touches the top of the step, Jane gets aggressive. Jane wants to sleep with me, and her flirting strategy is that of a prehistoric caveman woman. That mine, me want now. She aggressively pulls me towards her bedroom, all the while grabbing and clawing at my, gentleman area. My protests and refusals fall on deaf ears. Somehow, I manage to play it cool, tell her that I should bring my dog downstairs so we don't get disturbed. She agrees and goes into her room. I grab my dog, sprint downstairs, grab the bag I brought, plus the booze I bought for myself, and bolted to the car and got the fuck out of Dodge. Luckily, my close friend, and at his request to be called this, Colt Youngblood, was awake. He kept me company and awake for the hour-ish drive home. Unfortunately, his husband, who is requested to be called Sloan Bravestar, was also awoken by this tale, and thankfully, after hearing the full details, was very understanding. So, that's my tale. Hope you enjoyed it. I certainly didn't.
Wow. I have had a similar experience, in fact, except I wasn't being physically attacked by her, or worse, my pet was not being held hostage, but still, I traveled a good distance away from home, about 30 miles, only for my date to be 3 sheets to the window when I got there. So, it wasn't a horrible night, but just, yeah, not ideal. Overall, these stories just make me feel really good about myself to be off the dating scene. It's exhausting in hindsight. And I'm glad I found the right one for me. And you know what? If you haven't already, you will too. Provided that's what you're looking for, of course. Anyway, that's about the time I have for you today. Please leave a like, consider subscribing, maybe even leave a comment. And stay awkward. Bye!